Happy New Year. I have a special treat for you today. I have Ami here, the environmental consultant. He's seen it all happen before, and he's going to share with you the ins and outs of the industry. And at the end of this, you're going to see what you need to do if you do suspect that your property is contaminated. Before we get started, I want to thank the Beverly Hills, Greater Los Angeles area of Association of Realtors for allowing us to use their facility today, and it's very kind and generous of them, so thank you. Ami, give us a little background of where you come into environmental assessment and the history of this industry, because you have seen it all, correct?
Yes, I've seen it all. In my background, I graduated with a degree in mechanical engineering with additional credits in nuclear and chemical engineering. And I worked quite a few years in those industries, nuclear, chemical, mechanical as an engineer. And then I moved to the environmental field. I moved into it in the 1980s.
I see.
In the mid 1980s, I moved into it. And at the time, phase one environmental site assessments were not that developed.
I see.
And we had to do 72 oil fields of Texaco, USA in 1988. We had to do 500 properties in downtown Anaheim at the time. And we had to invent the phase one.
Okay.
It's actually got streamlined only around 1992 by the ASTM. So we have been in there from the very beginning, yes.
So he's definitely contributed to how you see the phase one is today. And we're going to go over more what a phase one, phase two is. He'll go over that towards the end of the video as well.
Thank you, that's correct.
Ami, so share with me an instance where phase one missed something that could have been a real liability for everyone concerned.
So when we are there doing our phase two environmental assessment, we noticed this cover on the ground, and we suspected there is something there. So we opened it and see what we found. We saw these connections, which are typical connections to an underground tanks. And this tank was not mentioned at all in the phase one work. And we were surprised, and this is this is the fill connection to the tank. This is a vent connection for the tank, and we opened the fill connection and we found that the tank was filled with water. We did not know how big the tank is, and we went, and here you see we are exploring with magnetic devices the tank underground, and we found out, here we see in this picture, we found out that this is a 4,000 gallon tank sitting in the ground. Not only that, we found out that it is filled with water. So we took sample of the water, we sent it to the lab, and we found out that the water is contaminated with hexavalent chromium. Hexavalent chromium is a very, very harsh, toxic substance. And we were very concerned because now we had 4,000 gallons of water contaminated with chromium. What do we do? So first we removed the water out from the tank, and then we moved to remove the tank from the ground. And here is the tank in the excavation. The open excavation, you see the tank. The tank is exposed, and we make hole. You see the triangle. This is a hole that we make in the tank to clean it up and to inspect it to see what is inside. As we look inside, we see here at the bottom. This is the bottom of the tank. Those bright spots. These are holes. So the tank has at least 3 holes, maybe even more, at the bottom of the tank, which are the size of the man's head. And we are very concerned because we know that the tank was filled with contaminated water, and groundwater here is about 40 feet below the tank. And what if groundwater is contaminated with hexavalent chromium? It could be a big deal. So we pulled the tank out. Here again, here are the holes. And we put the devil next to it because this is a real devil with those holes. And we pulled the tank out. Here is the tank. You see, this is the hole in the tank. And after we pulled the tank, I noticed, and I heave a sigh of relief, I noticed that the soil under the tank is kind of silty clay. And it has the nature of becoming thick and solid when it's getting moist. So it is moist, you will see here. And I said, well, maybe it plugged the tank. And so we pull the tank out and we take samples, and I tell them, what we do, we take samples about 3 feet under the bottom of the tank. And here is the excavation. Here is where we took the samples from under it and it came clean. So we are all very happy, because if it were contaminated, we would have had a multi-million-dollar liability on our hand, and a liability for everybody, because had we not discovered the tank and the phase one did not notice the tank, had we not discovered the tank and then the buyer would buy it and then they find the tank and then there may be some contamination, this would be a big mess for everybody. In this case, we were lucky, we found out about it, and we were happy.
Wow, you certainly helped this client dodge a bullet there, huh?
Yes, and otherwise, you know, especially with clients, with buyers and sellers that are not that sophisticated, and when they hear tanks, and they get very afraid. So in this case, we resolved it. Not only we resolved it, we got the highly desired letter from the regulatory agency, no further action required.
It's wonderful.
So now they have the certificate. Everything is okay, no further action, everything is okay. Case closed.
Now that's a success story. Now, so Ami, realistically, are some of the fears overblown now, and are the regulatory agencies, are they being more strict? Are they setting levels higher now? What's the case with that?
Yes, I would say the fears of the concerns of the uninitiated people in the industry, the people that are not familiar, the fear could be overblown. The concerns could be overblown.
Okay.
But they are overblown for those that are not educated in it, that don't work with it day in and day out. It's not different than you going to the doctor and you have a stomach ache and you freak out all night because you don't know what it is, okay? The doctor look at it and he's not as concerned as you are because they know a lot more, all right? So it's very similar in this way. The fears are overblown, but it's not as bad as they think it is.
Now, previously they weren't checking for vapors, and now they are. Can you tell us what's the difference now that they're checking for vapors and how it was before when they were not checking for vapors?
Right, vapors is a big issue. I would say that vapors, toxic vapors, are the main concern in our industry nowadays. So when we have a leak, here for example, see this above ground tank here, and it is leaking into the ground. You can see that the liquid does not go too far away from the tank. But if it is a volatile liquid like gasoline or solvent, it will vaporize. And the vapor, they travel in the ground much, much farther away from the source area. And here we have a building, and they go under the building, and then they seek to enter into the building. So this is what we are, I would say, in a large way, our main concern today is about toxic vapors migrating in the ground.
So that's something to definitely look out for the vapors now. So what are some of the typical courses of action when they suspect that their property is contaminated?
Okay, first we do the phase one, where we find out if we have reasons to be concerned. Let's say we find out that there was a dry cleaner a couple of doors down from us. Then we are concerned. They may have spilled down to the ground, it may have evaporated, it may have traveled under our property. So here we have an example where a consultant did a phase one environmental site assessment, and he indicated the client, the user of the report, is the owner of this property here, where we say, you see, apartment building. They need the phase one in order to refinance the property. The phase one says, well, what do you know? There is a dry cleaner here, and we are concerned that they may have contaminated the property by releasing toxic vapor into the ground. So the bank says, well, we want to do a phase two. The client retains us to do the phase two. We go into the area and we drill holes around the building, and we suck out the vapor from the subsurface soil. We suck it out like a vacuum cleaner. We suck it out. And we suck out the air, and we take samples of it, we send it to the lab. And then we find out that indeed this dry cleaner contaminated the area. Indeed, there is toxic vapor spreading into the neighborhood and going under the building, the apartment building of our client. However, the good news is that the level of the contamination is so that it is below the risk level. It is not risky. And we issue a report and we say, yes, it's contaminated, but no, it is not hazardous. And they take it to the bank and they get the loan.
Wow, that is interesting. So when they first bought the property, there was no contamination, but because of their neighbors' negligence, you can say, or not properly treating their chemicals, now their property is now contaminated.
I would say, well, when they bought the property, in all likelihood, it was already contaminated. They purchased it about 20 or 30 years ago. However, in those times, we were not testing for vapor in the ground. And in those times, not everybody was doing phase 1 and phase 2. And in those times, not all lenders were requiring phase 1 and phase 2.
Interesting. So it may come up when you do your refinance and you're going to need some expert consultation. So Ami, do you mind if I share your information, and if they have any questions about their property, if they're concerned that their property today may now be contaminated when it wasn't before? It doesn't hurt to do a precautionary investigation as well, right?
I would say yes, and I would encourage them to call me.
Okay.
I would encourage them to send me whatever reports they have. I don't charge for talking on the phone. I don't charge for meeting with people. I don't charge for educating people. I do charge if there is a real work coming out of it. Then I will start charging. But I invite everybody, just talk to us.
And I can attest to that because I've asked him many questions and he's given me such detailed responses that I just share the entire copy and paste and show my client, and they're like, wow, this is so detailed. It gives them, it makes it crystal clear on their next course of action. So definitely, I'm sharing Ami's number right here, and he is okay with you emailing him or calling him. And there you have it. I hope this helps you make an informed decision throughout the year, because I am very confident you will come up with an environmental issue.
Thank you, James. I really appreciate it.